Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, sir. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Syamril, and I am from Meteorology class of 2B. Today, I have the honor of presenting my keynote speech as part of our English language final exam excitement. I hope this keynote speech is insightful for everybody else. So my keynote speech with the title of Freezing Our Future, the Urgent Imperative of Glaciers and Polar Ice Caps. Let me start. Excellencies, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished ambassadors, esteemed delegates, and dear colleagues. It's a profound honor and solemn privilege to stand before you today as the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization. We convene at a crucial moment in human history where the impacts of climate change are no longer distant threats, but a harsh reality, jeopardizing the very livelihoods and survival of our planet. Today, I want to highlight one of the most striking and alarming indicators of this crisis, the dramatic decline of our glaciers and ice caps, particularly in the polar regions of the Arctic and Antarctic. Imagine for a moment those mighty glaciers, eternal towers of ice that have stood sentinel for millennia, and the colossal ice sheets covering our poles. They are not just beautiful natural wonders, they are the silent guardians of Earth's delicate climate system, vital freshwater reservoirs, and the ultimate barometers of our planetary health. Yet, this timeless landscape is undergoing a transformation at an alarming, indeed unprecedented speed. Data from the WMO and the global scientific community is crystal clear. The polar regions, the Arctic and Antarctic, are warming 3 times faster than the global average. This phenomenon, known as an Arctic amplification, is drastically accelerating ice melt. The Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets, which together hold about two-thirds of all the fresh water on Earth, are currently losing millions of tons of ice every year. The Greenland ice sheet, for instance, has lost an average of about 267 million tons of ice per year since 2002. If the entire Greenland ice sheet were to melt, global sea levels will rise by approximately 7.4 meters. Meanwhile, the Antarctic ice sheet has lost an average about 136 billion tons of ice per year over the same period. While seemingly smaller, the potential sea level rise from a full melt of Antarctica reaches a staggering 60 meters. These figures aren't just an astonishing, they are undeniable proof of a global warming driven by human activity. They aren't just statistics, they are a global distress signal demanding immediate action. The melting of polar ice has far more extensive implications than just local sea level rise. Its consequences are global and interconnected, affecting climate, ecosystem, and the lives of billions worldwide. As I mentioned, the melting of Arctic and Antarctic ice sheets is the largest single contributor to global sea level rise. Every centimeter of sea level rise can put millions of people at risk of coastal flooding. Major cities worldwide, densely populated coastal communities, and vulnerable small island developing states face an existential threat. Critical infrastructure like ports, roads, and clean water systems are at risk of being submerged or severely damaged. Large-scale population displacement will become inevitable if we fail to halt this rate. Polar ice melt doesn't just affect water volume, It also impacts global atmospheric and oceanic dynamics. The albedo effect. White ice and snow surfaces reflect about 90% of solar radiation back into space. As ice melts, darker ocean or land surfaces are exposed, absorbing more heat and accelerating warming. This creates a positive feedback loop that exacerbates global warming. The ocean current changes. Massive freshwater influx from melting ice into polar oceans can affect crucial global ocean circulation, such as the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, IMOC. These ocean currents, acting like a giant conveyor belt, distribute heat across the planet. Disruption to the IMOC can lead to extreme weather changes in various regions, including colder winters in Europe and erratic rainfall patterns in other parts of the world. Jet stream disruption. Rapid warming in the Arctic can also influence the Northern Hemisphere jet stream, making it wavier and slower. This can lead to more extreme and persistent weather patterns, such as prolonged heat waves, drought, or severe winter storms in mid-latitude regions. The polar regions are home to unique and fragile ecosystems, as well as species that are heavily reliant on ice for survival. We experience the habitat loss. Polar bears, seals, walruses, and many seabird species depend heavily on sea ice as a platform for hunting, breeding, and resting. The drastic decline in Arctic sea ice, which has shrunk by about 12.2% per decade, directly threatens the survival of these species. They are forced to forage further or spend more time on land, increasing conflict with humans and lowering their reproductive rates. The ecosystem shifts. Ice melt and changes in sea surface temperature trigger species shifts. Species from warmer areas are moving north or south, disrupting food chains and outcompeting polar species adapted to cold conditions. And next, we experience the threats for ocean acidification. Colder polar waters are more efficient at absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. However, this increased CO2 absorption leads to ocean acidification, which threatens organisms with calcium carbonate cells, such as krill and shellfish, which form the base of most polar marine food webs. And the release of greenhouse gases from permafrost. In the Arctic, beneath layers of the ice and permanently frozen ground, it lies permafrost, which stores vast amounts of organic carbon and methane, a greenhouse gas for more potent than CO2 in the short term. As permafrost thaws due to warming, these gases are released into the atmosphere, creating another positive feedback loop that accelerates global warming. This is a carbon time bomb with the potential to release emissions equivalent to a medium-sized country's emission over a century. This is like a call to action. We can no longer afford complacency. We must act now with a level of determination and urgency that matches the scale of the challenge before us. As a global community, we bear a profound moral, scientific, and intergenerational responsibility to address this crisis head on. So, what must our collective response be? Our foremost priority must be the drastic and rapid reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. This means an ambitious transition to renewable energy sources, a radical improvement in energy efficiency across all sectors, and systemic changes in our industrial, agricultural, and transportation systems. The 1.5 degrees Celsius target of the Paris Agreement must be our compass, and we must achieve global net zero emissions by mid-century. Secondly, we must significantly enhance our monitoring, research, and early warning system in the polar regions. The WMO will continue to strengthen our global observation networks to track changes in glaciers, ice sheets, and permafrost with even greater precision. Accurate and timely data is crucial for understanding the impacts and developing effective adaptation strategies. We need to invest more in scientific expedition and remote sensing technologies to understand the complex dynamics in these regions. Thirdly, we must prioritize adaptation and resilience building, particularly for the most vulnerable nations and communities. We must support those on the front lines of climate change to adapt to the unavoidable impacts of ice melt, including developing early warning systems for floods and storms, climate resilient infrastructure, and sustainable water management practices. We must learn from the traditional knowledge of Arctic indigenous communities who have adapted to harsh environments for millennia. Fourthly, we must foster unprecedented global collaboration and climate diplomacy. This challenge transcends national borders. It demands stronger international cooperation, robust knowledge exchange, and the sharing of innovative technologies and solutions. Nations must uphold their commitments to the Paris Agreements and significantly enhance their emission reduction targets. Distinguished delegates, our polar glaciers and ice caps are striking reminders of our planet's fragility and the immense power of human impact. Their story is a cautionary tale, but it's also crucially a story of hope. If we act together with urgency and commitment, we can still mitigate the worst impacts and safeguard a livable future for generations to come. We must protect our poles, not just as natural wonders, but as the vital regulators for the entire Earth's climate system. Failure to act now means freezing our own future. The WMO stands resolute alongside you in this monumental endeavor. Let's make this conference a truly transformative moment, a moment where we renew our solemn commitment to protect our precious ice resources, and in doing so, secure our shared future. Thank you so much.